Boom! Hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out. Boom! Yo, special announcement. We've got the very first Protector Symposium coming up this November 15th and 16th. Check the website, Byron Rodgers Motivation, for more information about it. You can purchase tickets there. It's going to be amazing. We've got Ed Calderon and Yosef Badu coming on to teach us some hardcore soft skills. Check it out. Get involved. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. We're going to have a great time leveling up as Protector. So check the website, ByronRodgersMotivation.com or ExecutiveProtectionLifestyle.com for all the details and to purchase you and your security detail, police department, or family's tickets. Out.
Boom. Hey, what's up, guys? Byron Rodgers here again with Mike, Knockout Lights. We are about to do an episode, and it's an honor to have you here with me, Mike. How you doing today?
Honored to be here, my friend. Good to see you.
Thank you, man. It's been a long time coming, man. We are, trying to track down professionals to get these things done. It's probably the hardest part of the podcast, because we're getting it in.
We've been trying to plan this for 2 months.
Yeah, easily. I made it out to one of your classes before we were able to set this thing up, man.
And did very well, by the way. Very impressive.
Thank you. And it was a fantastic class. That review I shot out there was absolutely genuine. I loved how you were breaking everything down to the fundamentals, and you gave us time to run through the fundamentals kind of your way, and get those things buttoned down before we start hitting the gas and just doing cool guy stuff in the class and not learning anything. So I felt like I was a better shooter by the end of the day because of those things. That's awesome stuff. So shameless plug.
I have changed my gears many times over the last 20 plus years on how I conduct classes. I think I mentioned this to you before. You so much want to impart knowledge, but at the same time, you want the students to have fun and feel challenged, feel like you're giving them something that's, above their expectation. But when you really talk about drills and running and gunning and going from barricade to barricade or cover to cover, all of that begins to fail if the fundamental understanding of how to run the gun is not there. Just the whole system collapses if you can't make the tool work effectively and efficiently. How do you expect to have the more dynamic application of using that tool to be deployed successfully? It's not. You're missing real fast, and you're running around missing the target. So I kind of really pulled things back to let's fix things at the very basic level and see if by fixing those small things, because it's usually small things, does that translate into greater execution once we start picking up the dynamic nature of the drills? And I personally think it does.
Heck yeah.
So that's been my focus in the last few years of my classes.
And it seemed like you were almost actively diagnosing the class and adjusting the curriculum based on where we were, which was interesting. It's there's some guys that run classes that I've been doing. It's just this is the format. And I've practiced teaching this. This is what we're going to move through. And then it seemed like you just kind of have done enough. I don't know, how long have you been teaching courses? Because it just seemed like you were all right, these guys kind of need this. We're going to hit this. And it felt very kind of tailored to where we were at as a class.
And that's exactly what it was, because, every class is different.
Yeah.
And, we created an expectation of, I guess you would call it prudent execution. And if that execution wasn't met, what is the point of accelerating past that point of failure without addressing the issues that are causing the failure?
Right. Yeah.
So if I stay to a curriculum, which I sometimes have to, especially with post type classes that are very specifically designed to take you from A to Z in order to get an instructor certification.
Mm-hmm.
My individual classes are simply about improving skill set. And I don't think that I do a service to the student if I continue to push the drills to a higher standard when they have no ability to execute what I'm asking them to execute because of some deficiency. So, like, if you can remember our classes, we stepped it up. We got a high degree of failure here. How do we simplify this drill and address the cause of it? Reinforce those mechanics or that, discipline, whatever it might be, by practicing it redundantly, and then seeing if we could bring it back to what we were doing, and if we improve execution skill and ability. Because at the end of the day, we can make fast noise, but we need to make the hits.
Fast noise. Exactly. That's good, man. That's like a shirt. That's like a t-shirt right there.
Make fast noise.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. That's exactly right. I dig it. Okay. Awesome. So first question, who would you say that you are at your core, Mike?
Well, first and foremost, I think I'm a father.
Yes, sir.
That's my highest calling is to create the next generation of moral, ethical, and responsible human beings.
Wow.
That I'm essentially responsible for developing,
Heck yeah.
And I know I don't have control over what's out there, but what I do have control over, which is myself and my children to some extent, I'm going to impart to them as much of those values, as much of the knowledge that I have to make them successful human beings. Now, I don't know what that feels like for a boy. I only know what that feels like for a girl because I have 3 girls.
Man, yeah.
But I think that is what I am as a core. My core value is how do I develop them? And in turn, I can spread that out to develop other people. So if anything, I have learned to become a good mentor. And I have been developing people my entire life, from my previous career as a banker, as a CEO, to, the law enforcement capacities that I've served or that I'm serving in now. I have taken leadership very seriously. And in that, leadership to me is expressed not through control, but through mentorship. If you don't develop the person that is subordinate to you, you are doing yourself a disservice. You are not meeting the requirements and the expectation of a leader. Leaders develop people. And you know what? The one thing that I have noticed in law enforcement is that leaders are very reluctant to develop people past their own skill level. A successful leader is the stupidest person at the helm. Because they have made the right choices in the people they've chosen.
Yeah, to get around them.
So when I was a CEO of my company, I would tell everyone, I'm the stupidest person here. I just made the right choices in people.
Yeah.
Right. And that's being able to relinquish a certain amount of control, delegate authority, but hold people accountable to measurable objectives. And I do the same thing with my kids. You want something, earn it.
Yeah.
Prove that you want it, act responsible, and I'll give it to you, whatever it is you want. And I think the same thing can be translated not only by being a good father, but that same level of mentorship and leadership can be transferred to any walk of life in whatever you do.
Heck yeah.
Leadership 101, right?
Right. It is, man.
I think you know a lot about that.
I try to stay up on it, man. I'm with you 100%. I try to raise officers, man. I'm right there with you. Like, I try to, anyone that's under me or that's working with me, the idea is to get them to be able to run the thing better than I can, without me being there. But yeah, so at your core, it sounds like you're like a mentor, an instructor. you're not just jacked and tan, bro. You're like strong and deep. You're smart and deep. That's what's up. I appreciate that.
Well, you buy a big truck that can pull a lot of weight for when you need it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, drive it economically so you can get the best out of it.
Heck
when you need to, but have the ability to turn up the gas when you need it. If I was frail and I was unable to take care of business, then, when I need that skill set or that ability, I haven't nurtured it. I haven't developed it. So a lot of it is just having something in reserve that you could pull from when you need it most.
100%.
So I stay in shape and I try to do my best I'm an old dude, so it's amazing I'm still vertical with all the injuries.
Man. No, I dig it, man. I'm all about it. Like I try to be as strong as I can. And I learned a lesson early in the EP game when, strength is good, but power comes from, the proper application of knowledge. And so I spent the first half of my life dedicating it to Marine Corps and getting as physically capable as I can and getting ready to go to war. And then getting pulled into, a top tier private security position. And then I realized this is only going to get me so far. So I started investing in learning and trying to understand how to really gain more ability and options in life. Just making different decisions and things. And it really is about that. It's I might not ever really need to use all of the strength I have, but I got it. I got the option. You know what I'm saying? And you can see that I have the option. Half of that is controlling the environment, just them knowing, okay, well, this guy brings accountability. I can't do what I want with this guy here. He's gonna have a say. You
talk a lot about in your little segments that you do about the word discipline,
man,
which is probably the most underutilized concept around, because successful people have something in common, and that is discipline.
That really is.
If you lack discipline, you lack follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And without discipline, everything that you do has a greater potential to fail. And failure is simply you conceding that you cannot do something.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a circumstance. It is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can fail and lose our life, but we gave it our best shot, and that's at least you tried your best. But people that have no will nor fortitude to stay the course make themselves failures by choice, not by circumstance. And a lot of that has to do with discipline. And I think you share the same sentiments that I do on that. God, there's a lot of flies.
Dang, man.
I must be sweating. Yeah. They're all over me, these flies.
Oh, no. Jeez, man. Those things get
I like your messages, Byron. You're a smart guy. You're a critical thinker. And part of that is being introspective. And some people don't feel that being introspective all the time is tough. It's like, oh, you're so metaphysical, or you're so introspective, always trying to work on yourself. Just shut up and get the job done. Well, but maybe I'm not satisfied with how I'm getting the job done. So introspection, knowing where our weak points are and forging those and making them more effective, part of knowing thyself is identifying your weaknesses, not being afraid to admit them to yourself or others, and fix the problem.
Right.
It's a novel concept, but it actually works.
Absolutely, man. And it's like I'm not my inadequacies. I am my inadequacies. I can look at myself and be like, okay, I got to work on this, and that. But I think where people fail is they don't realize that, I know the path to getting better. It's discipline. You know what I'm saying? I know, even if I know that I don't know how to fix that problem, I believe in myself enough to know that I can figure out how to do it. It's age information, we can figure it out and then we can get after it. But I think a lot of people, because they don't ever face themselves, because they don't know if they can get better, that they run their entire lives from their inadequacies. And then you point one out to them and it's like they have to die a small death to face it, because they haven't been facing anything. And it's confidence comes from experience. And, the things I've been through in my life, the things you've done in your life, you can look pretty much anything in the eye now and be kind of like, all right, like I'll deal. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I didn't die. The lion didn't kill me. The bear didn't kill me. You know, this, that, and the next thing in Iraq didn't kill me. So by the grace of God, I'll deal, or I'll do my best and I'll die with my honor. You know,
Right.
this is always, we weren't going to survive anyways.
And
Yeah,
a lot of
man,
what you're talking about too, you know, and this is what goes back to experience. And people like to use experience as a means to establish why they're somehow better
yeah.
than
Yeah.
somebody. And
Yeah.
what experience gives you is perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective someone else may not have. Doesn't necessarily give you skill.
Mm-mm.
It gives you perspective. Skill is something that is forged oftentimes outside of the actual event.
Mm-hmm.
But those events, if you survive them or you win them, add perspective. And that perspectives sometimes gives you direction.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, a lot of people who make the argument that, you know, experience is the sole reason for them to be where they're at, that's part of the truth, but it's not all the truth. So, you know, I would rather measure the man or the woman by their conduct, by what they're able to provide an individual, right? As a matrix or a measure for success, rather than these are all the things I've done, therefore I am the expert.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a double-edged sword. But there's just so many. It's such an ego-driven. The firearms and self-defense in general, such an ego-driven business. I mean,
golly, it is, man. SHOT Show. I'm always like, I got to prepare myself. I always have to prepare myself for the conversations. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm still never gonna forgive that guy that I've met one dude and he just rolled up on. I was like, just like, hey, I'm Byron, and he's like, hi, I'm Jeff, Navy SEAL, 8 years. Would you like? What's your background? I'm like, I'm Byron, bro. Like, I'm just Byron. Like, yeah, I was in the Marine Corps. Can we hang out? Am I good? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love SHOT Show. Yeah. I love SHOT Show. I enjoy the heck out of it. But it is like the mecca of the ego-driven. Like, you see it all there. I see it all there. That's right.
Yeah.
You know.
To me, it's an insecure argument. You know, if you got to constantly defend why you have a right to do what you do, you're obviously insecure about it, right? Just be you.
Demonstrate it.
Just be you. You know, we're the sum of our experiences.
100%, man. And what you're saying too is dangerous, I believe, for me in the private security industry, and then also in the firearms game, because it's like people like to act like because they were once upon a time, you know, the grandmaster, like ultra special forces, whatever, that they can still, you know, that they have like a right to do and say certain things. And I'm kind of like, at least in my industry, I don't have time for it. Like, it's awesome that once upon a time you were whatever, but today, you know, looking at you like, are you still in shape? Can you still do what we need you to do when we get to work today? You know, like, I respect the heck out of what you've done and where you've come from. But the argument we always have is just like, hey, man, like, can you still perform now?
Yeah.
And that's the whole, those are the magic beans. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, buddy, an asshole with experience or without is still an asshole.
Yeah. Right.
Just don't be an asshole.
It's just don't be, you know, don't do it. So, tactical background, man. What can you share with us? What's your, the infamous question?
What have I done? What am I doing? Well, I mean, I have instructed or provided an instructor venue for over 24 years. My facility hosted all of the canines in this county, police dogs, for both federal and state, for our entire county plus adjacent counties for nearly 24 years. Also, my range serviced many of the departments, local departments, and agencies would train at my facility. And everything kind of stopped and changed around June of last year because of changes in permits. For me, I've been sworn going on 13 years, been on the SWAT team for over 12 years. Number 1, 2, or 3 in the door. I've missed one deployment in those 12 plus years. I've made every one, partly because I'm close to where I work. So needless to say, I'm usually the first on scene because I am so close, geared up and ready to go. Very busy town, a smaller department, but riddled with gangs, gang violence, lots of dope, but it's a busy city with a lot of problems. So
awesome.
we get our fair share of experiences as far as the deployments and even just the general police contacts we have on a daily basis. It's a difficult city to work in. On top of that, I'm a post-certified firearms instructor, tactical rifle instructor, SIG Master LE instructor. I hold a number of those credentials, which essentially what that means is I work with a team of guys. We instruct other instructors for their department. So we turn people come to us to become firearms instructors so that they can instruct their officers at their respective departments. And they come from all over the country for that endeavor. And POST stands for Police Officer Standards and Training. And that's kind of the governing body of, what is acceptable lesson plans to give to officers to develop them into what they deem appropriate for instructor status. I have a different opinion, but the curriculum has to be approved by POST. And a lot of it, I'll be frank, is lowest common denominator training. And
see that
people,
in the military.
And people chastise that and say, officers need to be better trained, military guys need to be better trained. And, when at the best case scenario at a general patrol level, you get to touch these guys 12 times for 1 hour per year. That's range every month. Some of them are quarterly. Some of them are semi-annually. They shoot 50 rounds semi-annually, some departments.
Semi-annually.
Semi-annually. So even shooting 100 rounds a month, I do that. I will shoot and exceed what most officers shoot in a year in a quarter of a day.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, in a quarter of a day. Yeah, same here.
The argument then is, well, these officers should have pride in what they do, go outside of what their department provides as far as training. And I'm saying firearms training because there's lots of other training.
There's so many other things.
But I'm saying just firearms training, pressing the trigger to develop themselves to a higher standard. And while I agree with that, that's very hard when you work, 3 or 4 12-hour shifts. You have a family, and your priority is not probably the most remote thing that's going to happen to you on your job, which is press the trigger. It's a very infrequent event. If you look at the average call and the types of calls most officers are making day to day, although there might be violent encounters where you're using to point a taser, a baton, or OC, or drawing your gun. Shooting someone is low priority for most patrol level officers. A lot higher for SWAT guys, but nevertheless, it's an economic thing. Training is pure economics. It's it's simply the departments want to know, can we minimize liability by justifying some level of competency through some form of qualification? Right? They qualified, so therefore they're good. But as far as developing skills to a higher level, it's not something that's required. Only minimal standards are required. So, I commend officers that go outside of their agencies to seek a higher level of training, but, you can't mandate it for everyone. And that's why you have this disparagement of skill level within a lot of agencies. Is there's people that are into it and there's people that are not into it.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's just important to have an officer who's really good at community policing. Treat people with respect. Not intimidate people.
Gain equity,
make them smile,
public.
make them laugh. Let them thank you after you give them a citation or take them to jail because you treated them with respect.
Yeah.
And I think that's training too. How to be a good ambassador of and a good civil servant. Absolutely. And that is treating your constituency with some respect, even if they're going to try to kill you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of the story that is untold is, to me, law enforcement training in general is below substandard. What they train is below substandard because it's under the premise that it's better than nothing. Better than nothing Yeah, but it's not better.
It's not good enough.
And I've talked before about there's a difference between being just good and there's a difference being great. Mm-hmm. Like that book from Jim Collins, Good to Great.
Yeah.
Great book, right? Do you want to be good or do you want to be great? Because being good is right here, being great is way over here. And you've got to work for the great. Mm-hmm. You don't get it for free.
Yeah, I mean, we had this bad joke. I was just in another country overseas, and my buddy was like, "You know what I've noticed over here? Nothing's really done with excellence. Everything's just good enough." Right. And it was just terrible how accurate he was. Everything was just good enough. We're driving on roads, and the two cars have to slow down and like kind of inch past each other because it's just good enough for everybody to fit down the road. But
isn't that a recipe for life? Isn't that what most people do with their life?
Absolutely.
They just get by.
Yeah, just good enough.
They don't want to go the extra mile to be more successful.
Yeah.
Or to be better at what they do. It's life is sometimes for people just getting by. And that's what separates people as far as success.
Yeah.
Are the ones that just are okay with status quo and getting by. And I tell people that success, the people that are most successful, it's very hard to be a successful cop. You're never going to be rich being a cop. Yeah, a lot of them make over $200,000 a year. Decent income, but success is definitely is connected to the amount of risk you're willing to take. Successful people are willing to risk everything to get ahead. Mm-hmm. People that are not risk takers in that respect are they're going to be in that comfortable box. Well, if you go outside your box, are you comfortable? No. Well, that's where you need to be truly successful.
And stay there. And then you need to find another box that's uncomfortable and go hop in that one.
Yep. And if you fail, you start over again. You don't give up.
Yeah. But you have the confidence to know that you can start all over again because you've whipped it on a couple times and you're like, well, I'll just figure it out. You know what I mean? You have that equity, that internal capital, that trust with yourself from these experiences. Yeah, man. No, that's good stuff. And then it comes back to discipline. It's like, are you hungry? And do you have that drive and can you muster up the discipline to get after it? No, that's good stuff.
I don't talk about successes very much on social media. People might assume from all the stuff that I have that I've, that I've had success in my life. But one of those is education. I have a master's degree from Pepperdine. It's a well-known private university.
Absolutely.
And to me, education is super important. And with education, there are connections. You get connections with people. You are able to collaborate with other successful people, develop your mind. And, shooting is a kind of a gross skill, but a tactic is a thinking process. Mm-hmm. The people who are deploying prudent tactics and making right decisions, you could get lucky and be inherently tactical, but a tactic is a thinking process. So the smarter you are at deploying your tactics, the more successful you are at implementing them. So,
absolutely.
Success comes in many forms, but I think the basis for success is always drive, discipline, and it doesn't help to be smart.
It doesn't hurt
to be smart. Doesn't
Yeah. No, I agree 100% because something I learned is, because I remember my drill instructors were like, well, Rodgers, you're not that smart. We're going to make you real strong. And and it really was the case because I couldn't remember my general orders and all kinds of stuff early on.
It's easy, bro. It's easy. When you're dumb, you got to be tough.
You got to be.
You're dumb, you got to be tough.
Which paid off because then I was kind of ballsy enough to do a bunch of bolder things in life, which then worked out, but
you're a sharp guy. You always have it. Doesn't mean,
Yeah. No,
and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to make good choices and learn.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't have to have a genius IQ to be a smart person.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I accumulatively, I think because I started out kind of not being able to read and write so good, I've been working on myself accumulatively enough, reading enough audiobooks, and I'm finishing my master's here in a month and doing all this stuff that now I'm kind of like, oh, well, we have acquired an accumulative intelligence along with a confidence that is ultra valuable that I wish that I could just give to other people, but they have to earn for themselves, you know? So it's very interesting. And what I learned through that whole journey is you can try really hard. You can be remarkably consistent, but if you're not becoming more and more intelligent on your journey, you will die tired. You'll die tired, and life doesn't care. You're like, nope. Your mom will tell you you're special the whole time. You'll fail and you'll die tired. You'll be the best distributor at Walmart, and it just will suck.
The word fair does not apply to life, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
You want it to, but it doesn't.
Right? So what got you into law enforcement? What's your mission? You know, why you're up in there?
So it's a funny story because, you know, I was involved in the training aspect for so long.
Really?
But the funny thing is officers just have a tough time relating to someone who hasn't done the job.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know,
I can see that anywhere.
So it's like, what do you know? You teach us how to shoot a gun, but you've never had to work in. You never did it. Mm-hmm. And because I got that opposition for so long, the minute I retired from my position, I went back to the basics. I went to an academy, police academy. I got hired, went to a police academy, was a boot, started all over from the beginning and worked my way up. You know, fortunately, I was already working with a lot of these officers. You know, I literally got on the SWAT team pretty much as a boot because I was already had a relationship with all the guys on the SWAT team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, but with that being said, it did give me perspective. It did change. I mean, there was some truth to that. You didn't do the job. So, you know, how do you know what it's like? So it was interesting having so many years of training and defensive tactics that applied to law enforcement, actually going into law enforcement and how my experiences changed my lesson plan. Like, wow, you know, things have evolved, which I think they should anyways. Experience or no experience, training should always evolve based on your understanding of what's happening, what works, what doesn't work. That's how tactics are born. It's not like, oh, this is my opinion of a good tactic. No, what works? Learn from the guys overseas. Yeah. You know, learn from what it feels like to actually be in ambush, which is something that's generally rare in law enforcement. You know, these guys are going through thresholds, going through doors with a preemptive attack already established through a stronghold, and these guys are dropping the entry teams. So these are the tactics that were working for those ambushes, and law enforcement adopted a lot of those same strategies and same tactics based on combat deficiencies and failures overseas. And as the military began to integrate with civilians more, believe it or not, the military started adopting tactics from SWAT teams and from law enforcement, because it's not okay to shoot a kid and it's not okay to shoot an unarmed person ever. Right. Yeah, so, you know, even though the rules of engagement may be a little different, I think the military actually found that they were backing off some of their SOPs and attempting to de-escalate situations rather with words, with devices, right? Rather than just with weapons.
Yeah, because you got to get those hearts and minds. Otherwise, your enemy will multiply if you're dealing with an insurgency.
How many people you want to shoot as part of casualty of war before the people you're trying to help
turn on you,
appreciate what you're doing anymore?
Yeah, and they start helping the other side.
Yeah, so a lot of the entry strategies where people don't understand will post stuff. I post very little tactics on my page because there's just such a hot topic. But, you know, if you think about a SWAT deployment, just take a house, for instance. Yeah. You got a bad guy in there with a gun, has a hostage, doesn't have a hostage. He needs to come out, right? He's got a gun. We've got inner, outer perimeter. We've secured the area. What is the rush to go in? What is the rush to make entry? What is the rush to dynamically enter that? Why not exhaust?
Yeah, why do we have to go shock troop?
Whatever it is, whether it's communication, whether it's a throw phone, whether it's gassing them out. Everything is an escalation of force. You know, if you start shooting rounds out of the window, you know, story changes, exigency changes. But, you know, law enforcement generally only uses dynamic entry for two purposes nowadays, and that's hostage rescue and active shooter.
Yeah.
Arrest? What's the
wait them out?
Why rush?
Yeah, I was doing a shoot house with a SEB friend of mine, and I'm like moving through the house, and he's like, what you rushing for? And I'm like, he's like, what did he say? He goes, where are you running to? And I'm like, I'm clearing the house. And he's like, how long do you have to clear this house? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, the rest of your life. He's like, you have the rest of your life to clear this house. Gonna go. He's like, you're running to your death.
Why rush to your own death?
Yeah. And I'm like, ooh. And it was so true, you know. But it definitely changed my mind on all that, a lot of the CQB stuff, at least my understanding at the time. But yeah, no, that's it's never okay to shoot kids, man. You know, it's rules of engagement. People are people, so it's hearts and minds. I mean, no matter what happens, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, times have changed and everything's connected. You'll be on the news. The whole world will see you fail, you know, these days, you know, so it's like the stakes are always higher, you know, even in combat zones now. Yeah, man. So let's see. What do you love most about what you do?
Well, I mean, my first and foremost love is developing others.
Okay.
Teaching, and I think that if you followed my page, for long enough, you will easily be able to see that I'm giving out way too much information for free.
Demonstrating a lot of value on your page, constantly demonstrating value, which I think is awesome.
So I think it's safe to say that I am not motivated by what I do by the dollar. That's not my objective. My objective is to pass on information, hopefully to good folks and not bad folks, that will assist them in either improving their skill, improving their understanding, and maybe adding to their repertoire. So if they do get into a fight, that some of those principles can be translated into success. And I cannot tell you, I saved these, but how many officers and people over the last 4 years have sent me direct messages saying, this is a circumstance I got into a shooting. These are the things I deployed that I learned from your page, that I learned from you. And they likely contributed to my success and saved my life and helped me win the fight. Those things are gold. Those are gold. I mean, you can't put a price tag.
Yeah, that's priceless.
Priceless stuff. So, you know, that's what matters to me is imparting information and without remuneration. You know, I make money on my classes, but I don't need to. My financial success has nothing to do with social media, nothing to do with police officer stuff, nothing to do with training. I do it because I enjoy it and I like it.
Absolutely.
If anything, I lose money every time I I set up a class or I post something on social media because it's a waste of my time.
Yeah, right. You're doing it purely for passion. That's awesome, man. You said you were CEO of a bank?
Yeah. I was a mortgage banker. We were a direct lender, securitized both our private money and Fannie Freddie stuff on the secondary market. So basically we would pool large amounts of trust deeds that we originated and secure those on the secondary market. So it had a lot to do with buy and sell of mortgage-backed securities. But had 1,400 employees, so we weren't a huge company, but you know, we were a successful company. And I was done in 2006. I just got out. I was done. I wanted to retire.
Heck yeah! So, and then you were like, well, what else do I want to do? You know,
well, part of it. So I had my training company.
Yeah.
And my other businesses. My passion was towards law enforcement and training, although I loved being the boss and being successful. So that was a shift in my career focus when I had an opportunity to retire out of one thing and pick something up new that I had already been part of for so many years.
Yeah.
So, you know, essentially I had two different jobs, but my aptitude was for both. But my preference was I want to stick to. I don't relate to white collar people particularly well. I relate to blue collar people.
Heck yeah!
I ride horses.
You got your dip,
for hundreds of years.
Heck yeah, dude.
I like it. I like running my tractors. I don't want to go to a country club. I don't want to be on a yacht.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit with down to dinner with wine and a $5,000 dinner with people
and little pieces of
bought a
food.
brand new Rolex yesterday. I don't relate to that.
Yeah, I dig it,
I
man.
can play in that game, but
Right.
that's who I am.
Right,
So
right.
I like simpler folks.
Yeah,
that
I'm
are
with you.
skilled with what's on, that are less focused on what's on the outside and
Yeah.
more focused on what's on the inside. And
Yeah.
not to say that the business people aren't like that, but I don't care how much money you have. I don't care
Right.
what new Mercedes or Rolls you bought last
Right.
week. You know what I mean?
I completely know what you mean.
That, but a lot of the people that have succeeded are pieces of shit. What do they do for other people?
Yes.
What do you do for other people other than take
Yeah.
what you do for other people?
Absolutely.
Right? So
No.
I had to at least be honest with myself. That was not a world that I related to. I related to just the average person who's just trying to live their life, be a good parent, raise their kids, and try to have some tools that they might need to protect themselves and their family.
Heck yeah.
Simple as that. And plus the cops out there that are doing they have a shitty job.
Yeah.
They have a tough friggin' job.
Heck yeah. Nah, man, I love that. I completely agree with you. I've seen the same thing. I had to move out of, I work out of Orange County, but I had to move to Orange because it was just constant friction, going to work for, the VVIPs and then walking around in Laguna Beach and everyone's like, hi, what do you do? And I've got my new this and my that and my, oh, you only have the this and that. And
you deal with it. You deal with it in your career. You're protecting people that are wealthy. And exactly the ones that are down to earth and good people and the ones that treat, just protect me. You should be invisible when we want to see you and we want to see you.
Absolutely. Yeah. When there's a problem that I probably created by not listening to you. Yeah. Right.
It's exactly. And I've worked with some, I'm not going to give out names, but security personnel that work for high value subjects like actors and singers.
Oh,
and they make your job miserable. It's like, this is what you need to do to be safe. But
and then you're
telling me that you're creating all this random shit that I've got to account for, and you want me to be responsible for your security? You're going to run. Oh, there's a chick over there. I'm going to run over here in a busy bar because you're going to ruin my game. Stay in the back. How do I supposed to protect you?
Right. And then when her boyfriend's coming, trying to get into the bottle service area because, it's my problem now.
Right. So that is the challenge in your career for sure, is controlling your principal's behavior.
Yeah. There's social dynamics piece, man, and controlling the different options, and you know what I mean. That's the game. It is a job, and it depends on your clients, vetting your clients, choosing the correct clients, so you have less of that to deal with. That's really helped. But yeah, man. So that's the game. What would you say about what types of mistakes do you see with regards to law enforcement, or that I think, officers or protectors should be most kind of worried about? What types of things do you hear or see in your world that go wrong?
So elaborate.
What type of negligence should people or law enforcement officers look out for? Really. Go ahead.
Are you talking about negligence in the sense of the things that they may do to while interacting with the communities that they serve that would present challenges legally or policy wise? Or are you saying what are some of the shortcomings that I see from general law enforcement as far as skill level?
I think for the average guys working in law enforcement, what are some of the pitfalls? I would say operationally kind of pitfalls that guys get into that may, that for us in the Marine Corps, it was complacency kills, nothing happens for a long period of time. Everyone starts thinking everything's fine. And then, they make mistakes. They don't do the things that they need to do. And we fail because of it,
Sure.
Today. Yeah, with you guys in law enforcement, I feel like terrain's changing so much with all the different social dynamics and political things. Are there any things that stand out that you think officers, pitfalls that they can fall into that can make their job harder?
Well, I think complacency is a big one. You do 100 traffic stops in a week, and all it takes is one for you to let your guard down, and you're done. So complacency is a big factor. Because most of the job is interacting, solving problems, and doing a lot of paperwork. That's
and doing a lot of paperwork, straight up.
It's problem solving, and through that problem solving, there's an investigative nature to it. Has there been a crime committed? Is this criminal? Is this civil? Is this a non-issue? So, your contacts are scrubbed through that process. It has a crime taken place that I need to take action. Now, some crimes, we don't have discretion, DUI, domestic abuse, any domestics where there's injury. We don't have spirit of the law. We have letter of the law. We are mandated to take action. The rest of it is more of a spirit of the law. You made a mistake. I can use my discretion to decide on what the outcome is going to be of this event. So where some of these pitfalls occur, other than complacency, is I think that law enforcement has a tendency to forget, and I think we talked about this briefly before, is I can't make someone respect me.
Right.
So I've got to deploy an ongoing attempt to continually de-escalate the situation.
And earn that respect.
If respect comes out of the way that you treat people, I feel that there's a higher level of compliance based on establishing that respect. And that mutual respect is something that is now earned between the both of you. An example of that is, let's use gangs, for instance, gang members. With 2 years in the gang unit. These guys are punks. But think about what is important, intrinsically important to them.
To them, respect.
Respect is intrinsically important. So as you're cussing them out and lecturing them in front of their homies,
you think they're going
to respect you?
Right.
But if you pull them aside and you treat them with respect, I'm not saying drop your officer awareness or your security in any way. Clear them, do what you need to do, but then talk to them like a human being, and you will be surprised. And don't be under the illusion that these people won't kill you if they have the opportunity.
Exactly.
But do you know how many times I've treated some of them with respect, sat them down with some of their homies there, and those little kids start chipping off that don't know you, and they get schooled by their own guy. Hey, shut the F up. He's a good dude. Keep your mouth quiet. Right? So they're schooling their own. And so a little bit of respect actually went a long way into obtaining a level of compliance. Right?
Yeah.
Versus me making you comply.
Right.
Because if I make you comply, I'm now escalating that force.
Yeah, it's high friction.
And so who's escalating? Me or you? So every contact that I have, my attempt is to de-escalate, bring you back down, qualify why your behavior is, hey man, why are you yelling at me?
Yeah,
because you friggin' cops always stop me. I'm sick and tired of your shit. Every friggin' day I'm getting pulled over for something else. I didn't do nothing. I'm just walking down the street. You're on probation, right? Yeah, I'm on probation. Hey man, I'll tell you, take a step back. You ever talked to me before? No. I go, don't treat me that way and I won't treat you that way. You don't even know who I am. Maybe I'm just a nice guy. Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. This officer was such an asshole. So are we not developing rapport?
Right, absolutely. Now you guys are on like this level.
Your behavior was not acceptable. And you know what? Spending a few minutes to develop rapport changes outcomes of contacts. And if I could, I said this to you before, the best cops are salesmen.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
And if you can sell yourself to these people, you're bringing your use of force down substantially. If you're going to fight, you're going to fight. But don't talk yourself into a fight because it's over. You're disrespecting the badge. Nah, you don't need to respect me, bud, but you do need to comply with me.
Right.
That by law, you got to comply, but you don't have to respect me. But I'll tell you, I'm going to earn your respect because I'm going to treat you nicely, so long as you treat me nicely. So I use three categories. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you nicely. Hey man, have a seat on the curb there for me for just a minute. Oh, F you friggin' pig. Hey man, come on.
Okay.
I might ask a couple times before I go to the next level. I'm going to tell you. If I ask you nicely and you don't, I'm going to tell you, sit your ass down on the curb. I'm not going to tell you again. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to make you. So I say it's 3 choices, but I can stay in choice number 1 a couple times. I can, as long as I'm not compromising officer safety in any way, I can spend a little time to de-escalate your anger and your frustration because, Joe Schmo, the cop, treated you with disrespect the last time you had contact. And this is about the caring part for people. Because law enforcement is, as much as it is about enforcement, isn't it about compassion too?
Heck, it's got to be.
Shouldn't it be about compassion for people?
Yeah. Even in Iraq, it was about compassion. You had to operate with that. You lose rapport of the city, you're going to get smoked, bro. Yeah, you're going to get overwhelmed.
Yep. So knowing how to engender certain elements of human contact, does that not make your job easier in the long run? Absolutely. And I think a lot of officers lose patience. It's like another POS giving me shit. I'm going to take it up here and make you do what I need you to do instead of spending the extra moment to develop that rapport. And I think that's a deficit that I see in a lot of agencies is the officers just don't want to go the extra mile to develop a rapport with their constituents. I mean, it works. All I can say is it's worked for me. Yeah. Still here. I've had lots of violent encounters, but I'm still here. And I have my use of force is very, very low. I don't have to beat people up. I don't have to fight people because I use my mouth and my brain without compromising officer safety to resolve the problem. And I think that makes a good officer. And that's why officers that have a little age on them sometimes make better officers because they're not proving why they are in charge. Yeah. Proving why you're in charge is a fruitless endeavor. Absolutely. You're never going to win why you're better or why you're in charge. Absolutely. You don't get people to comply that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great answer to that. Your question. No, you killed it, man. Absolutely. That was like a fantastic answer to it. What would you say the hardest lessons, I mean, that might have been part of it, hardest lessons you've learned on the street doing cop police work?
Well, by far the hardest lesson is the street ain't shit. It's internal. Okay. It's what is in police eat their own. Okay. Give me the street all day long over what goes on administratively within a department. And any cop that says it's otherwise, it has just not done it long enough. Okay. There are so many checks and balances. There are talk about the need to be transparent. At least the agency that I work for and the other agencies I've worked with over the years, departments are very self-conscious about community awareness of what goes on. So there are so many checks and balances. And as a result of so many years of, I think, abuse within departments, where there was this, the thin blue line, we use all these things to this fraternal order of police, like there's this club trying to break that pattern of this club mentality where it's us against them, that they simply eat their own. Any chance, it's always whatever occurs, the officer is always initially at fault. They initially blame the officer. There's just not a lot of support administratively for their troops because of that need to be blatantly transparent. And while that's a good thing, as far as the shortcomings, that's where they're at. There's so much in the internal pressure. The pressure comes internally far more than the job provides externally. Wow. And I think most police officers will agree with that, that most of their frustration is coming from within and not without or from out.
Yeah, I hate that feeling, man. We had that happen in Iraq when I was there. It was like during the time when the detainees were when they made the detainees take the naked pictures, and like there were some rules of engagement issues we had, and man, you just didn't feel safe. We were literally in a firefight, and I had officers yelling at me like, "What are you firing at?" Like, make sure you ID. Like, just us, we're getting yelled at, and we're trying to fight at the same time, and like. We get back to base and they'd be like, we want a round count of every single round you fired, like, and written, like it got stupid, but it was this feeling of knowing like, yo, when things happen, maybe they don't have our backs. Like we need to really, it was a really kind of an insecure way to go into battle would be the best way for me to sum it up. It was not positive.
Think how that translates to conduct on the street. So now, because of so much internal pressure, officers are reluctant to act a certain way out of fear that their department won't support their actions. And second guessing will kill you. So you're gonna get killed by second guessing your decisions.
Yeah, that's the dichotomy.
That's where that mechanism fails. Is we're starting to question. This guy needs to be taken down, but I'm reluctant to do what I know I need to do because I don't know if my department's going to have my back or not. So, I think it's just truth. I'm not afraid to say the truth.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I don't know if it's like that in every department in America, but a lot of the big ones, everything you do is scrutinized for good reason, because, everyone is measured by the one person who screwed up. Well, Bob screwed up. So all 1,000 of you officers are now going to have to comply to his one mistake.
Yeah.
This is bureaucracy at its finest, right? So rules and policies are not developed by the mass. It's just like gun laws, right? One bad person shoots someone with an AR. The rest of us who are responsible have to pay the price for that person's action. Same thing in law enforcement.
Yeah.
We pay the price for the people who screw up, and it just trickles up, doesn't trickle down.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. As far as things that get my goat in the field, there's not, I don't get an elevated heart rate too often. I'm pretty stress inoculated, but what gets me going is my own personal negligence.
Yeah.
What I mean by that, the last one that was big for me, where I had a little bit of adrenaline dump, big adrenaline dump, is it was on an approach to a car. And I was looking around, but I was more hyper-focused on what was going on in the car because there was multiple occupants. Some were gang members.
Yeah.
And I walked right by someone hiding in the bush right next to me. And I didn't register it until after I passed them.
And you just knew like,
it just wasn't right.
I know that.
So I walked past him. I went, what did I just see? I turn around with the light, and here's a dude crunched down behind the bush. Just happened to be a homeless person.
God bless him.
But if it wasn't, I'm done.
Yeah.
I screwed up.
Yeah.
I screwed up on my approach. So when I do things like that, that's what gets my heart pumping. We can have a 4 a.m. deployment in the MRAP for an armed subject barricaded, and I'm sleeping on the way there. I've done it so many times. It doesn't get my heart rate up.
Right.
Stuff like that gets my heart rate up because I just screwed up bad.
Yeah. And you know it deep inside yourself.
And it's an infrequent occurrence, but it does happen. And I learn from those.
Yeah.
I don't just take an experience and say, oh, I screwed up, because we all screw up. But what did you learn from the screw up? If you're still standing, what did you learn? How are you going to do things different in the next time? Was this a complacency issue? I mean, it might have been. Or was it a hyper focus on the vehicle that I wasn't scanning my environment as I was moving up and approaching the car, where to go, what's in my immediate environment? I mean, it could be a combination of a lot of things, but the result is whatever I did put me at a disadvantage. Yeah. And I'm always thinking offensively. What puts me in a position of advantage to the situation that I need to deal with? Always ongoing change. Always me at the advantage, the subject at the disadvantage. And and in that point in time, I failed.
Yeah. With a lot of these
happened, but that's what gets my goat.
Right. No, I dig it, man. With a lot of the real world violence stuff that I be posting, it's always like you'll see the tide turning. Like you'll see like the victim not paying attention, and then you'll see like the wolf like getting these advantages on them and positioning before they strike. And then just every time I get sent a video or I post something, I'm like, oh, here it comes, and you can see it. And if there is one thing I'd say is like, yeah, keeping that tactical advantage in the situation is that's where the fight begins. I mean, it doesn't begin, but it's important. Yeah. What would you say would be a scary, have you had a scariest moment on the job that you can talk about?
Yeah. And it's probably not what you think. It's not guys with
Uzis, AKs,
not with people trying to kill you.
Yeah.
The scariest moment for me, interestingly enough, was had to do with a female, suicidal female.
Okay.
And she, I made contact with her in a parking lot. My partner was walking up as well. She had slice marks all over her arm from a razor blade. She cut herself up. And my partner approaches her to make contact with her. And all of a sudden, she starts slicing his neck.
His neck?
His neck. Okay. What appeared to be slicing the neck. Mm-hmm. She attacked him. Yeah. And I said, right before he grabbed her, he's got something in her hand. He's got something in her hand. He grabbed her. She went to town.
Wow.
So I end up...
It's a razor blade, too?
The impulse was to create distance. So for whatever reason, I just drop kicked her right in the stomach. Hard as I could. Just front kick right in the stomach, separated her. She fell, buckled over, pulled my taser out, and was just going to tase her, but I happened to give her a command, and she just gave up.
Okay.
Well, she didn't have a razor blade, and what I thought in my mind for that moment was she was slicing my partner's neck open.
Right.
The scariest thing to me is not you shooting me, is not you attacking me, it's me not backing up my partner. My partner getting injured because I didn't do something.
Right. Yeah.
So I know this sounds trivial, but to me that was the most frightening thing in the world, is to watch my partner
go down,
act, and his neck being ripped apart. Well, she ended up having a pair of tweezers in her hand. She was trying to stab him in the neck with it, but she ended up getting his vest and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But it could have been a lethal situation for him.
Yeah.
Certainly if I didn't act immediately and jump in there and do something, he could have been stabbed in the neck. But, again, this is a suicidal subject, doing it just for me. The scariest thing is is my negligence going to contribute to someone else's demise or them getting injured?
Yeah.
I don't know why it is for me that it's less about my own personal safety. It's more about my relationship with my team members or my partners and them getting hurt. Mm-hmm. Because I've had lots of I've been shot, I've been stabbed. I mean, I've had lots of bad shit happen, lots of fights, lots of broken bones.
Yeah.
But that stuff is what scares me the most.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know why I'm wired that way, but it's that protective nature in me that,
well, that
would have been the scariest moment for me. Thinking that my partner's neck is being lanced open with a razor blade.
Jeez. No, I agree 100%. I'm the same way. I think that mindset is woven deep into masculine culture, all the way back to the Spartans and all of them, like the samurais, because you see a lot of we're locking shields. I'm here for my guys in the Marine Corps. I can die with my honor, but I ain't going to let anything happen to my brothers, and I'll die over that,
Yep.
And that is what really weaves us together. I think it's kind of that masculine. I think it's part of the fabric that's helped men make the world what it is being able to be so concerned about letting our honor kind of be tarnished by the guys that we fight with, letting them down. It's kind of half the reasons why, you could be shot or messed up and your buddies would be like, you good? And you're like, I'm good. You know what I mean? It's still to that same, I can still contribute, get me back in the fight kind of thing, mentality, man. Yeah, that would be.
There's something to be said is we fight for each other.
Yeah. And that really is it. And I remember it's that cheesy Black Hawk Down, most beautiful romantic movie in the moment in the movie where Hoot's like, nah, man, I do it for the guy next to me. Once those rounds start flying, all the diplomacy and all that stuff, it just goes out the window, and it sounds so cliche because it's been true for a long time.
And some people don't rise to that occasion.
This is true.
They hide. Their self-protective nature comes in. They're not going to step in front of the bullet. They're not. And there's plenty of instances where guys have, to save their squad, jumped on a grenade. I mean, that was their impulse. I mean, talk about a friggin' hero. Talk about a warrior mentality.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it for you because that's the kind of person I am. But we're not all like that.
No.
And I'm not saying it's bad that you're not like that, but don't be in a career where you need to be there for your friggin' brothers and sisters.
Know that about yourself. Yeah. Before
it's
we
a selfless kind of career when you're willing to do that for others. It's not much like Girl Scouts. Being a protector, being a soldier is not for everybody.
No, heck no, it's not, man. Yeah, that's a good scariest moment. What would you say your proudest moment is? And then we'll get into this PowerPoint stuff.
Proudest moment.
Yeah, when you're like, you know what, this is what I do this for, or you felt validated for everything. You're like, man, this is it. Not it, but like, this was awesome.
I'd have to say my proudest moment is taking someone at their worst moment, whether it's a victim or even a suspect, and being able to get them into a position where they're okay, where they're not. Let's just take a victim where there's a death or there's a violent encounter, and they're just so distraught that their entire world has been pulled out from under them. And being able to sit down and spend the time and connect with them. This is the compassion part, where you're able to bring them back into a state of, I'm going to be okay. And they don't want to leave your side. They don't want you to leave them. They latch on. To me, that intrinsically, it's the connection that I seek. It's that, making a difference. Those are the things that why I'm in this job is to make a difference.
Really valuable.
And it's not hurting the bad guy or taking a bad guy into custody. It's the humanity part of it, where you're taking someone that is in such a bad place and comforting them to the extent where you're making a difference in their life at that worst possible moment. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm a softie, but that's what's meaningful to me. It's not all the violent bullshit. It's the humanity part that connects with me the most. Does that make sense?
100%. I think there's this weird, I haven't been able to articulate it quite right yet, but there's this kind of, I feel like truly strong men have this side where like you're strong, you like love to give your strength to people as much as you can. Like you see someone who's shattered by this circumstance and you want to like, in some ways, like help them understand it's going to be okay. You're able to be compassionate because you're strong. Like all the bravado stuff is the farthest from strength. It's ridiculous. It's like, you see that from the weakest people. They're hiding and trying to like peacock because they don't have it on a deep level of knowing, And so I find with like the strongest guys, like, and guys that have been through a lot, you have a deeper connection to humanity. You have more compassion and you want to give that. And you want to show people it's okay to be vulnerable. You want to show people that it's okay to be, you like want to empower people because you're strong, kind of. It's interesting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's well put. And I think that's what separates people in general is what they're willing to impart for others.
Yeah.
Even at the worst moment. And it is a skill. And it is a type of person. You're so worried about how people perceive you or your role, then you're looking out for yourself.
Yeah,
Sometimes
and you don't have that strength.
For other people,
Yeah, and I think also it's healthy masculinity too on some levels too, man. The other stuff is kind of really unhealthy. Not that only men can have that, but I think the way that we're talking about it, it's a version of healthy masculinity. I'm strong to serve. We hit this slide during one of your courses, and I thought this was awesome just to share with everyone. Great content that like got me thinking outside of the box. And you had these were factors on this slide. Factors to, what is it, surviving a violent encounter? Or
I think these are principles, I think, that we're talking about. These factors are indeed principles and things that I want people to consider in any encounter where they may be subject to violence or subject to having to de-escalate or solve a problem.
Okay.
If I'm thinking about the right slide. So ask me the questions and that'll kind of direct us to the right place. Survivability
versus winning.
Right. So, we hear a lot of people talk about, I survived this fight.
And so I can teach and so I can.
Survival. It's all about survival. Survival to me, fighting isn't about surviving.
Right.
Fighting is about winning, because surviving is I got a bullet in my stomach. I got an eye that's poked out. I got a broken arm. I can't, I made it, but at what cost did I make it?
Mm-hmm.
Winning is you're there on the ground, incapacitated, and I'm standing here, and I have won this fight with very little injury to myself, both
still healthy,
physically and maybe emotionally, because by winning even even in the violent encounters that I've had personally where I did get shot, I still won. So if I didn't win, I think that would have affected me emotionally.
Absolutely.
I would have had bad dreams about. I've never had a bad dream about anything that happened to me because I kept fighting. Yeah, I survived that one. I'll admit I didn't want to survive it, but I didn't take a bullet to the head. On my way to a bullet somewhere else. But the reality is I won. I incapacitated the threat, and I made it out of court without.
And I made it out of court. That's big.
Won all the way around.
Yeah.
So that was good. With that being said, how do you create a training objective between survival and winning? And that is very simple. I'm not interested in being this much better than the people I fight.
Man, that's
this much better than the people I fight.
Heck yeah.
Right? So it doesn't have to be a fair fight. I'm not interested in a fair fight. I don't want to fight someone that is on my level.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make it harder for me.
Or it's going to be expensive.
I'm not assuming I'm assuming everyone is as good as me, but the reality of it is they're probably not.
Right.
At least when it comes to a firefight. That's for sure. So with that being said, I want my students to understand that it's not okay to be just this much better. Work to be this much better because you're reacting to force, which puts you at a disadvantage. So they can shoot at you as much as they want and make them as much noise as they want. But when your gun comes out and you direct it towards that person, that threat, they're taking rounds and they're simply making noise and you're being effective at what you do. Right? So I want people to understand that that's where I want them. Over here, not over here.
Yeah.
And that's the true nature between winning and surviving, at least to me.
Heck yeah. No, that's 100%. You survive, man. You're not healthy. You're not combat effective. So survival shouldn't be the goal. And I love what you said about not interested in a fair fight. Like on a daily basis, we're aiming to just widen that gap. Like whenever you see me posted on a Saturday morning and I'm like, yo, I'm out here. I'm going to shoot this competition. Hopefully my enemy's waking up, going to 7-Eleven, getting a big gulp and a Slurpee with a hangover. And that's the guy I'm going to run into. I'm going to go ahead and get this training in,
That's right. That's right. And that's usually the case, but you can't.
Hopefully.
You can't always assume that. But,
exactly. There was a few years ago, they found U.S. Special Forces guys running around with the cartel. I remember, it was a couple of years ago, so... you can't expect that anymore. Yeah. Mercenaries, man, and we've seen active shooters with body armor and stinking rifles and the whole nine,
and former,
former military guys,
borderline guys. I think he was a military guy.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one in Dallas. I think it was a Marine and he shot, I want to say 3 cops. Was it 2 years ago? So the days of expecting that we're dealing with undertrained folks are coming to an end. And then the parachuters, they were also, I think they may have been something like French Foreign Legion guys. Now the game's getting more and more real. Access to information is there. Access to equipment is there. Yeah. So it's, you gotta try to make that gap larger and larger on a daily basis. If you're not, you're wrong.
Don't assume the enemy doesn't have skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Skill versus luck.
So, I have felt throughout my life in bad circumstances that I might have been lucky. So the question is is preparedness a component of luck? Right?
Okay.
And I think it is. And I think it is good to be lucky, but the more prepared we are, the more opportunity luck has of shining its very nice face.
Yeah, the luckier we get.
Yes. And luck also, the feeling of luck also contributes to a mental state. And let me clarify that a little bit more. So when you debrief officers involved in shootings, oftentimes they felt that they got lucky because they weren't fast enough, because they didn't make a decision fast enough or quick enough.
Okay.
As a result of that, feeling that, it wasn't necessarily skillful, they just got lucky, that changes the way they make future contacts with other individuals. And an officer that's involved in a shooting is, I forgot the percentage, but they are more likely to get in a second shooting 1 or 2 years later because of the first. And that is because the feeling that they either didn't work hard enough or that luck played a role in their winning that fight, surviving that fight. So,
so then they kind of create.
What's that?
So they kind of create that circumstance again, or they
not necessarily create it. They're just more decisive in their action, less questioning.
Okay, they recognize the trouble quicker, maybe.
So for instance, they might have saw a guy holding a gun here, in this position. It wasn't pointed directly at him. They didn't take any action, and that guy ended up presenting the gun out and missed. They shot, they hit, they went down. So what does this tell you? Next time you get into contact with a guy with a gun like this,
get ready to shoot him
give
now.
him a chance for me to get lucky. I give him a command, drop the weapon. He doesn't drop the weapon, I'm shooting.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you see where that dynamic could very clearly exist. Same thing with the knife, same thing with the bat, or any potential weapon used for lethal force, is it changes because in the fight or flight state, most of us often have a change of perception, specifically time. This is from experience too, you will feel that you're not fighting hard enough or well enough, that you're losing.
Yeah.
Because your perception of that is so skewed and slowed down. And that's part of our training objective that we talked about is, people press the trigger a lot faster than they think they're pressing the trigger. And they haven't developed the skill set or the control to manage how fast they're pulling the trigger. As a result, that gun's flapping everywhere. Rounds are going everywhere. They're missing the target.
Yeah.
Because they've never explored pressing the trigger that fast in training. Because they've never had to, because they're qualifying and they don't have any time constraint. So out of impulse, they end up running that gun without the proper mechanics to support the speed by which their impulse is dictating. Not choice. It's
impulse at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to be able to create some sort of training objectives to handle what may very well be a sheer impulse while they're fighting. The gun comes out, it orients toward the threat. I don't got sight picture. I don't got shit. Point at you, and I'm pressing the trigger as fast as I can. Well, you're not going to be too successful if you don't do that same thing through some sort of training objective.
Yeah.
Because by golly, we know people do it in the field. We see thousands of videos like that every day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time.
You see that guy getting sight picture?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Single hand operation. Bam, bam, bam. No sight picture. Pressing, flapping in the wind. So my whole argument is, why not just explore these concepts while training and hope that they translate to some effective principle or understanding while fighting? If I train it and I use it, I'm likely to be more successful at it when I need to use it, based on those impulsive natures that we see while fighting. Make sense?
Heck yeah, 100%. Before and after the fight.
I think a lot of the reason we brought that up in the Combat Essentials class, is because shooting and social media, I don't know what it's become, and I'm still doing what you do. What's popular?
Yeah,
you do what people want to see.
That's how you get their attention.
What's that?
That's how you get their attention.
That's how, well, it's you want. I mean, it's basically become an online competition. Who can shoot the fastest? Who can look most mechanically perfect? And we've lost perspective of some of the elements that really need to be conveyed to people. And that's, what do I do before I get into the fight? And what do I do after I get into the fight? Because everyone has got the meat and potatoes is the pressing of the trigger.
Yeah.
Right? So, I do try to cover as much as I can concerning, what are some of the things you need to look for? What are some of the things you need to do prior to the fight? And number one, not everything requires a commitment to shoot out of the holster. In fact, 99.9% of all law enforcement contacts don't require you to transition your finger to the trigger, but your weapon is pointed at a subject. and you're giving that subject commands, right? You're de-escalating the situation. So from a mechanic standpoint, before the fight is draw your weapon with your finger indexed and give some verbal commands to that paper target, to that steel target, because talking is a big component of de-escalating. And if you don't train talking while training, it ain't going to happen while you're in the moment. So we've got to reinforce the things that we want to reinforce through a training objective that will translate into prudent, prudent exercises or in the field, or prudent things in the field. So before the fight may very well be the attempt to understand yourself in relation to the threat, in relation to your environment. So an ongoing assessment of where I'm at, what I'm doing, where am I going to go through that contact, if it's possible. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it just, you pull your gun out and you return fire. And I tell people this, well, Mike, how do I know when I'm supposed to shoot somebody? And I tell them probably the greatest tool that you will use is you won't have to think about shooting somebody. It's not something like, oh, should I shoot him or shouldn't I shoot him? So I always say this, if you have to think about shooting someone, there's probably another force option at that moment. So, before the fight really is about you understanding your position in relation to the threat, if you have that time, and taking advantage of your environment to put yourself in a position of advantage over who you're talking to. For instance, there's a tree 3 feet away from me, and I'm out here pointing the gun at you, not utilizing that tree as a point of cover. Yeah. So that's just like, here's possible salvation a couple feet away from you, and because you're so locked into the problem, you don't perceive how to use your environment to your advantage, right? So you're not fighting yet. You're not physically fighting. You could be. So what are you using in your environment to provide you additional security? And then exit strategies, retreat. All of this has to go into your mind. So this is a thinking process, right? It's not just stand in one place, draw your weapon, point your weapon, and shoot. It's how do I constantly evaluate where I am in relation to the problem and move to a position of authority over that subject. That's a thinking process, right?
Absolutely.
But something we can train, because we can create obstacles. We can create decision-making through contact. So understanding that 99.9% of all contact, at least for law enforcement, is in the challenge position, finger indexed on that weapon. How do I impart with my students the ability to use their environment to their advantage? Because they may not have to shoot them.
Yeah.
But if they do, what improves your ability,
survivability, and winnability, right? And then also like noticing that tree that you could use for cover before something happens. Like I was on doing something the other night, and a vehicle starts like slow rolling past all of us, and I look at I'm with 2 just like blank civilians, and I'm like, you guys found cover yet in case there's a drive-by? And they're all like, and I like, for me, I'm already kind of thinking like, all right, I got a car over here to my right. What's this guy slowing down here in this context of situation for? But I say that to them and they're like, oh. And I'm like, just pay attention, like it's fine.
No, it's exactly right. The feedback in your environment should change the scope of your decision-making. So it's an ongoing assessment because, like you said, that car could have been, that car could have been a problem. So what are you going to do? How are you going to factor in that equation into the equation you're dealing with?
Right.
And an ongoing assessment is prior to the fight. Post-engagement, now we get a lot of people talk about the scan and assess and all this. It's a range theatric.
Got some katas going on.
Yeah, whatever they're doing, all this. And arguably, people have made it theatrical because I was just talking to one of my good friends, our range master, about this class that we had last month. It was kind of an open. It's like a range day it's more for his group.
Okay.
And I'm watching their recoveries, and I look at the targets, and they're bad, but they have these elaborate, very stylish recoveries where they're done shooting the target, and it's a sweep here and a sweep here. Come to school, very shoulders out, very exaggerated 180,
Yeah.
It's just very methodical, and it's like a dance, and they're very into the style of how this whole looks like.
Right,
and I'm
right.
This is why people make
fun of you guys. This is exactly why.
I don't like to use the word looks like shit, but you didn't shoot the target really well, but you have this whole dance that you do at the end of your string, right?
Yes.
And so I see why people are going, this is a range theater, but let me tell you, you got to know where you're at in relation to your environment and your subject all the friggin' time.
Dang
and the
right.
only way you do that is to consciously assess.
Yeah.
You got to do it. And you shot a guy right here. He's on the ground. I'm going to hold. Look, he's not moving.
Yeah.
And how long, this is a trained process. I can bring the gun back to this position. Look right, left. Nothing. Look behind me. Nothing. My sectors are friggin' clear. Move to a different position. Move to cover. Move somewhere. Yes. It doesn't have to be a sequence of events that are predicated on a 180 static range environment.
Right.
I don't need to look behind me. I can walk around the threat and use that circular motion around the threat, keeping them in the center, to assess my environment. Just an option, right? So post-engagement is all about improving your security, making sure that the subject is incapacitated, he's no longer a threat, analyzing who is in your environment that can help me, who is in your environment that can hurt me, and where am I going to go next?
Right.
That is what the cognitive process should be.
100%.
And we don't talk about that enough in social media because it's not sexy. It's boring.
Right. And finding work, man. Find work.
Find work.
Figure out where you need to cover. Figure out who you need to call. Yeah, exactly. Who you need to make
friends.
Call 911.
They're going to be at the next fight when you go to court.
Yeah.
Hey, you over there. Did you see what happened? Come here. Help me.
Yeah.
Make friends.
That's the truth, man. When you go to court. Disruption.
Was that in the context of, so there's two forms of disruption. I think in the context on that screen, disruption is simply, how do I disrupt you from successfully hurting me? Okay.
Kind of the OODA loop kind of.
It is very much a component of OODA loop, but more importantly, if we are dealing with a reactionary assault where I'm reacting to force.
Good guy situation.
Okay. You're fighting me. I don't see it coming. You've got the jump on me, right?
Yeah.
I have to disrupt that attack in order for me to have the opportunity to attack you, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this is the name of my company, Assault Dynamics. And what changing the assault dynamic simply means is, how do I stop reacting to your force and force you to react to mine? So the longer this fight is drawn out, the worse it is for me on two levels. Number one, if I'm reacting to you, there's nothing offensive about what I'm doing. I'm reacting, I'm blocking, I'm running, I'm blocking. Number one. Number two, for people who are not stress inoculated, and here's a good example.
Yeah, that's true.
You've almost been in a car accident before, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you not press the brake and avoid being smashing this into the car in front of you?
Absolutely.
You did it, right? Mm-hmm. Did the effects of what happened occur when you pressed the brake or right after?
Like the shakiness and all that stuff came right after. Right during, there was like focus and
focus. Yeah. And you had, so it was safe to assume the longer the fight or the event draws out, the greater the effects of adrenaline or fight or flight is to my system.
Yeah, the shock here.
To end the fight early puts us at an advantage from our own bodies working against us. Yeah. In some ways it works for us because it's doing things to heighten our state of being, but it also diminishes our scope of our environment, our tunnel vision, our perception, our shakiness, our fine gross motor skills, which, by the way, I do believe in them, but I don't believe in them when it comes to weapon manipulation,
to the whole motor
slide
skill.
Lock because your hands are going to be frozen. Bullshit. You've done that 100 times. You slide lock 100 times. Yeah. So my point being is, you have to disrupt the attack, and disruption is movement, lateral movement.
Heck yeah.
So if I can disrupt the attack, it provides me an opportunity to change the assault dynamic. You tried to shoot me. I made it hard for you to shoot me, but now I'm more skillful than you. I'm going to shoot you. Now you're reacting to my force. I changed the assault dynamic.
Heck yeah. Taking the fight to them.
Yep. So that simply means we talk about people always move to cover. Immediately, the sign of a fight, improve your position by moving to cover. That is a defensive mindset, not an offensive mindset. So just like the Marines, this comes from the Marines. Take the fight to the battle.
Heck yeah.
Overwhelming force, overwhelming power. Take the fight to the bad guy. The same principle can apply while fighting in the street. I ain't going to give you an opportunity to delay this. The inevitable is I'm going to take the damn fight to you. I'm not going to run to cover, reevaluate my environment, figure out where did you go.
Yeah.
You started the fight. I'm going to end it right now.
Attack the attacker.
And that's why we train. So we can do precisely that. Take the fight. Doesn't happen in all the circumstances. I mean, you got 3 guys with a rifle shooting at you. I don't know. You
got to be smart about it.
The odds are you probably need to get into a better position.
Yeah.
One-on-one, you got a bat, knife, gun. I'm going to take the fight to you.
Oh, yeah. Attack the attacker all day. Heck yeah. Reactive versus proactive.
Yeah, and that goes back to the original concept of disruption. Reactive is very much what we deal with in law enforcement and what civilians deal with. We're reacting to something, which puts us behind the 8 ball. Right. The military can observe a combatant 100 yards away, formulate a plan, and create a preemptive, proactive attack. Right?
Yeah, heck yeah.
There's 3 guys with AKs over there. We're going to sneak up. We're going to use our armor as cover, and we're going to take them down before we get to them.
Yep.
There's very few instances where we can create a proactive attack. We can have proactive decision-making as far as our planning and our tactics. But at the end of the day, the bad guy is really dictating what our response is going to be.
Yeah.
Because I can't use more force than is being used upon me. I can't. I have to be able to articulate reasonableness of you, you're holding up a stick like this. I mean, could you poke my eye out at 10 feet with this? Maybe, but can I shoot you because of this?
No.
Probably not.
Can I justify? Shooting you because of this.
It's going to be a big stretch. So I've got to justify my actions based on the reasonableness of the force I use, which puts me behind the 8 ball. I can develop a plan, but I'm more reacting to force rather than proactively coming up with a plan to incapacitate you from distance or through overwhelming force, right? So that's the difference. We need to realize that we're more in a reactionary state than we are in a proactive state.
Yeah. Another reason to get that training in, because you're going to have these smaller time. You got to make better decisions in shorter amounts of time. Low frequency versus high frequency.
So this really relates to decision making.
Okay.
So let me use a type 3 stoppage as an example. Okay. So I'm an officer on the street. I shoot 2 rounds. I'm fighting somebody, and I end up with a type 3, which is a failure to extract. Right. So I have the worst kind of stoppage in my gun possible.
Yeah, it's like
I got 3 other magazines here, and I got the initial magazine that I've used. Do I want to spend the extra time saving those rounds for the fight that may happen with somebody else or a long drawn fight I have possibly with this guy? Or do I want to execute and resolve the problem as quickly as possible because I meant to shoot you, but I can't because my gun isn't working? So ditch those rounds, strip the magazine, get rid of that problem, clear the problem out, reinsert a new magazine rack, and stay in the fight. So what low frequency decision making is versus high frequency decision making is our low frequency occurrences dictating our choices. And my choices are usually for the fight that is in front of me and not the possible fight that may occur 20 minutes later or 5 minutes later. So one is more, I'm doing a tactic that's diminishing my success right in front of me for a possibility that may happen later. Or am I focusing on the fight that's in front of me and I'm going to worry about the fight that's going to happen later? What's dictating my choices? And that's really where low frequency and high frequency come into play, is through a decision-making process. Are the things that we're deploying compromising what I know is in front of me for what may happen later. Does that make sense?
Heck yeah. So it's like kill the closest enemy, prioritize, and execute, essentially.
As far as now, if it's the only magazine I had, I don't have to save it.
Yeah,
if I got 21 rounds times 3 left on my belt, who cares that I'm dumping a full magazine on the ground? Who cares? I got, what do I got? 63 rounds to resolve this problem.
To fix the problem, yeah.
So it's prioritizing through that. So that's one way to use high frequency, low frequency.
Heck yeah. And then finally, criminal and civil liability.
Yep. And, that's a big one. But
that's a big one.
it both for law enforcement and for civilians, they have to understand authority. Yeah. The authority, what gives them the authority to deploy a lethal force device, whether it's a blade, whether it's a gun, whether it's a bat, even less lethal options. And what we need to understand is that for a criminal case, all we need to do is present reasonable doubt to win the criminal proceeding.
Okay.
A civil hearing is a preponderance of the evidence. The threshold is much lower to achieve a conviction. So even though you may win the criminal component of it, it doesn't mean you're going to win the civil component of it. So when we're talking about criminal liability, I shot somebody, people have to understand, was the deployment of that weapon reasonable? And reasonableness is what is going to be weighed by 12 jurors. Mm-hmm. Would a reasonable person in a similar situation act
the same way?
In the same way. Mm. And that is the scrub. So the first thing you have to establish is, why am I deploying the weapon? Does it meet the elements? And what are the elements? Imminent threat, not perceived threat. Oh, he looked mean. So I drew my weapon, and pointed it directly at him. Nah, that's not going to fly.
Yeah,
So imminent means a threat to great bodily harm or death. That's an imminent threat. So that gives me justification to draw. Okay, not perceived. And that changes. I mean, a 4'6" female and a 6'8" guy with, something in his hand. Is he potentially a threat?
Yeah.
Even with fists, and he's coming at her like this. That's reasonable for you to draw a weapon on that because of disparagement in size. Force. It doesn't always have to be, well, he's got a gun, therefore I can draw mine. You have to be able to articulate reasonableness of that act. Would someone else feel that their life was in danger based on that circumstance? Mm-hmm. So if you look at imminent threat and reasonableness as a justification, you're pretty good at justifying that. The civil component is it is a crapshoot, because almost every officer involved shooting we've settled with the families. Even when we've had officers shot, and we still pay out to the families for wrongful death.
Man.
So just be prepared. Even if you win both the criminal and the civil, you are going to be in debt for a long time. So the moral of the story is, if you don't have to shoot someone, just don't shoot someone.
Don't shoot them. Golly.
Get the hell out of here. I mean, you win every fight you don't get into.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Man. Yeah, it's faster than you, foo. Like, get away, man. Get out of there. Yeah. Heck yeah. So yeah, I wanted to run through that slide, man. That's awesome. So in closing, man, favorite quote, mantra?
Favorite quote, a mantra. I got a few of them. I would say that most of my favorite closing mantras are related to business.
Okay.
And related to people. And I'm gonna extract an excerpt from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And that is, get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, and get the right people on the right seats or in the right seats.
Heck yeah.
And that has to do with so much in life, your friendships, your businesses, your business relationships. At the end of the day, it's people that make or break any organization. Mm-hmm. And it's people that make or break who you are. It's the people that you associate with, the people that you learn from, that you work with, Mm-hmm. And if I had a choice, I'm going to surround myself with people that make me a better person and embody the things both morally and I would say mostly morally, that support what I believe in. Surround yourself with people that build you up and that support you being a better person, and don't hang around with people that bring you down.
Okay.
So that my closing statement would be twofold. The first one I used, and also the second one, is kind of how I live my life is under that pretense of who I surround myself with.
Yeah. I always say that everything good and bad, many things good and bad that come into your life will come through your relationships. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And then do you have a habit or something that you do on a daily basis that you think makes you a better person or better at what you do?
I got habits I don't like to do, like chew. That's probably chew and Diet Coke are my only vices.
Yeah, but, Diet Coke. Okay.
For me, I would say that on a daily basis, I am always looking to find ways to improve what I'm doing, whether it's my understanding of something, a subject, or my ability to execute something. I am always looking to improve under the pretense that I realize I have one life to live.
Awesome.
And time is a variable that I can't control, and I only have so much time here. So what am I going to do within that time frame that either enriches my own understanding of something or my own ability, or enriches someone else's?
Okay.
Because the legacy that we will leave on this earth is a legacy we leave to others. Mm-hmm. That is our legacy, is what we impart on other people, and I otherwise why are we here?
We're wasting our time.
What is our calling? What is our calling? And for me, it's to develop somebody else, make them a better person, and in turn, hope that they do the same for the next person. I guess would be my mantra.
Heck yeah, man. That's so awesome. Contribution. It's big.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
It's been an honor having you, man, and spending this time with you.
All right, brother.
Lots of depth. Learned so much. Where can people find you real quick?
They can go either to my Instagram or Facebook pages, Knockout Lights. Also have a webpage, assaultdynamics.com. But, I spend I don't use social media as a marketing tool to increase revenue. I'm not a revenue I'm an information driving system. So, you know what? DM me, send on Instagram or Facebook, or comment on a post, and I try to get back to everybody. So my objective is just to provide information, to give you something to think about. Nothing more. Nothing's doctrine.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. Once again, Mike, thanks so much for I'm glad we finally did this.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Catch up with you soon.
Heck yeah. All right. We'll talk soon. See you out there on the interwebs, man.
All right. Stay safe.
You got it, brother. Thanks. Later.
Boom. Yo, special announcement. We've got the very first Protector Symposium coming up this November 15th and 16th. Check the website, Byron Rodgers Motivation, for more information about it. You can purchase tickets there. It's going to be amazing. We've got Ed Calderon and Yosef Badu coming on to teach us some hardcore soft skills. Check it out. Get involved. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. We're going to have a great time leveling up as Protector. So check the website, ByronRodgersMotivation.com or ExecutiveProtectionLifestyle.com for all the details and to purchase you and your security detail, police department, or family's tickets out. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to ExecutiveProtectionLifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place by teaching people how to protect themselves and the mindset behind that, the lifestyle behind that. You guys are already killing it. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can do that you know you would probably just lose in the mattress anyway or spend on McDonald's. Hey, you want to put it towards something that's going to good use, put it towards a podcast, and get involved in our Patreon account at ExecutiveProtectionLifestyle.com. And if you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can to that Patreon account, because it makes all of these things possible, ladies and gentlemen. So much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for making those contributions. You guys rock. We're already doing amazing there, and it's just because of you guys. So thanks once again for those contributions. Boom. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This whole entire thing actually just started off as a Facebook group that blew up and is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, executive protection Facebook group online. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and check us out at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. If you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. So until the next podcast, y'all, stay sharp out there. And as I say it, one mind, many weapons. Talk soon. Out.